This lesson we're going to take a look at is the first practice problems related to unemployment. And some of these problems are adapted from the AP exam in 2018, number 3. The first question just says countries face trade-offs when they produce consumer goods and capital goods. And then it says country X takes an hour to produce a unit of consumer goods and 2 to produce capital. Y takes 2 hours to make consumer goods and 4 hours to make capital. Which country has comparative advantage in the production of consumer goods, and explain. So to solve this problem, and this is kind of a review from last semester, we're going to set up a table and we're going to say capital goods and consumer goods, and then we're going to say country X and country Y. And one thing to observe about this problem is that it is an input problem. Input problem. And we know that because it gives us the time, hours, to make 1 unit of the particular product. And with input problems, we put the inside number over the outside number. And so we're going to say, let's put some numbers into this from here. Country X takes 1 hour to make consumer goods and 2 to make capital goods. Country Y takes 2 for consumer and 4 for capital goods. And so then we see 1 capital is equal to inside number 2 over the outside number 1, 2 consumer goods. And what that's telling us is that every time that this country X makes a capital good, they are giving up the opportunity to make 2 consumer goods. And then that's because it takes 2 hours to make a capital good. So in that time, they could make 2 consumer goods. Likewise, for country Y, when they make a capital good, it's the 4 over the 2. So 4 over 2 is 2 consumer goods. And so we see they have the same opportunity costs. And we'll go ahead and fill out the rest of this here. 1/2 capital, and then 1 consumer here is 1/2 capital. And that might perplex you, but I've mentioned this before, but when they have the same opportunity costs, then neither has comparative advantage. Neither. When they have the same. They can't both, because having comparative advantage, if you don't remember, means having the lower opportunity cost. And neither one has the lower opportunity cost. So we'd say because their opportunity costs are the same. Now let's take a look at this table with country X. And part B here is probably more of a mistake. That should just go away. This table shows us employed, unemployed, marginally attached, discouraged workers, retirees, and students. Now, the first thing says calculate the unemployment rate in country X, show your work. In order to do that, you have to know that the unemployment rate is a percentage, and it's given as the number of unemployed people divided by the civilian labor force. So we have to figure out the number of unemployed people first. So UE is going to be equal to, let's see, these people are employed, these people are unemployed, these are unemployed, these are unemployed. So it's going to be 10, right? That's these 10 plus 5 plus 5, and that's these 3 groups. That's the number of unemployed people. So that's 20. Now, what's the civilian labor force? Well, you have to know civilian labor force is equal to the unemployed plus the employed. So that would be unemployed, well, we calculate it as 20, plus how many people are employed? Well, 180. So that's 200. So the unemployment rate is 120 over 200, and that is 10%. 10%. Now the next problem says the labor force participation rate in country X, show your work. Now this one, the labor force participation rate is equal to the number of the labor force divided by the total population. And this one, I've been pointed out to me a couple times that I could have done a better job in my table here making this clear. So we need to figure out the total population. We've already got the labor force is 200. So we're just going to write here civilian labor force is 200. The total population is everybody else. So let's add these together. We know that here, right, gives us 200. And then we've got 40, 20, and 40. But this is something pointed out to me earlier today. Discouraged workers are technically all part of the marginally attached workers. All discouraged workers are by definition marginally attached. So we would say that if this is interpreted this way, that these 20 are part of these 40, then we're kind of seeing 20,000 that aren't there. So the total population would be 200 plus 40 plus 40. Now, if you read it the other way, and again, I'll clear this up maybe in future lessons on this, if you read it as these are just marginally attached and these are the marginally attached who are discouraged, right? So this is an additional 20,000, then the total population is 300. And on an exam, I would make it nice and clear. So if, let's say if the total is 280, then it's 200 over 280, and that's kind of a funky percentage. That's like about 70%. You'd have to get a calculator for it. But if you did 200 over 300, that's an easy percentage. That's just 67%. So we could do both of those. And again, on an exam, I'd make it really, really clear which one is which. Okay. Now let's take a look at part E. Draw a correctly labeled graph of the PPC for country X with con on the horizontal and cap on the vertical. Okay, I can do that. That's pretty straightforward. More last semester stuff. Okay, and we'd put a little kind of curved line because it's a country, so we assume there's some maldistribution of inputs. And then it says indicate a point on your graph labeled Z that reflects the current level of unemployment. Now, one thing to think about is, and we haven't talked about it at length in this class, is that there is cyclical unemployment. And cyclical unemployment, there's 5,000 workers. That means that we are in a recession. And another way to think about it is that you have some unemployment here of workers who in a normal circumstance, these people would be employed. So we're going to put our point down here. Point Z will be below the line because there is a level of cyclical unemployment. And anywhere below the line is perfectly fine. A point on the curve would indicate full employment, which we'll talk about in the next lessons, and beyond it would be beyond full employment. So hopefully this helps you with some of the practice problems on unemployment, part 1, and I'll see you next time.